Hey there, comic book fans. This week I got something a little special for you. I have got Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four Artist Edition. Now, unfortunately, this isn't actually mine. A friend of mine lent it to me, but I figured I'd make a video of it because it's really nice to look at. First of all, he got it for a pretty big price, a pretty good price, because if you see that corner down there is dinged up. So, comic shop owner gave it to him for I think $80, which is right around the comic shop owner's cost. I think they pay around $75, or I'm not exactly sure of the number anymore, but I think they pay around $70 or $75, $80 for these. The shops get them for, and then they sell them for whatever they can, $100, $125. But you know, who's going to pay $125 for a dinged up book? I guess no one. So I'm sure the shop owner was glad to get rid of it at a small profit or around cost. That made a good deal for my friend. And no, this book is not only Jack Kirby, it's clobbering time. It's Joe Sinnott is doing all the inking / embellishing in this, and we'll talk about that in a second. And Sam Rosen and Artie Simic are doing the lettering. And you get Fantastic Four number 71, Fantastic Four Annual number 6, Fantastic Four 82, 83, 84, and then you get a selection of splash pages and covers from random things. And if we look at the credits here, down the bottom, it says Joe Sinnott embellishment. And that usually means he's doing a little more than inking. He's adding, Kirby may have only been doing layouts or breakdown, but it looks like Kirby was doing fairly complete pencils, but not totally. Oh, look at that beautiful splash page. And I think Joe Sinnott was also doing a lot of the faces, because they don't all look like Kirby faces. And also, I haven't, I've only read maybe half of the Lee and Kirby run on Fantastic Four, because it wasn't a book I really liked as a kid, in that the Stan Lee writing kind of turned me off. So like I said, it wasn't one I collected. I read a bunch of them, of course, reading Marvel's Greatest Comics, reprints, and reading, whatever came in the Fireside Origins books or whatever I happened to run across. But it wasn't a favorite like Spider-Man was, that I read a lot of. I read all the Ditko Spider-Man, and I read a lot of the John Romita Spider-Man. But I didn't really hunt down the Fantastic Four stuff. But this is just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And what's especially interesting about it is, I don't know how much of you, how many of you know this, but if you can look at, let me get one that's on the bottom, it'll be easier to show. Jack Kirby wrote notes on the story as he drew it. Wow, just page after page is beautiful. Let me see. Unfortunately, a lot of these pages during the printer or color separating trimmed the edges, and that's where a lot of the notes were. So a lot of the notes are only half there. Look at that beautiful splash. Here we go. If you look down here, in pencil, there's a note in the margin, and that's all Jack Kirby writing. It says, into distortion area 17. Looks weird because human vision is not developed to see in it. And there might have been another line under there, but who knows. And up here it says barrier. There it says gateway to the negative zone. And man, no one. I've read down. Here's the collage page he did. I've read Stan Lee saying how much fun he had writing this stuff, and I can imagine he did, because like in a lot of this work, Stan Lee didn't even see it until the Jack Kirby's pencils came in. So imagine you're Stan Lee in the 1960s, and you get a bunch of Jack Kirby pages in, and pencils, only, and you lay them all out in front of you, and you read all Jack's notes, and you make a story out. I mean, Jack actually had all the basic storytelling done, but this is all Stan Lee's dialogue and caption. So that had to be fun. I mean, look at that beautiful Annihilus picture. I mean, well, what a way. I actually worked that way once, very briefly, on an 8-page story I finished for a friend of mine. And it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. I had 8 pages in front of me. I had to, they were all finished but weren't dialogued or anything. And I had like a source material I was working from. And I had, look at that beautiful figure right there, Mr. Fantastic. And I had to put all the pages together and put all the dialogue in, but Stan got to do that with Jack Kirby. Imagine that. Imagine how much fun it was to get these pages in with all of Jack Kirby's notes. Torch is attacked by a sonic sponge, which not only could execute him and put out his flame, but something else that's cut off down the bottom there, unfortunately. But imagine, I mean, I could see why Stan Lee liked working that way. It must have been a thrill to turn these beautiful pages into a finished comic. And the other thing that's beautiful about this is a lot of people think Joe Sinnott is the best inker on Kirby, and I can certainly see why. He has got such a great line. His inks are so if you just look at this figure here, every line is just bold and clean and clear cut. But here's where I think he gets credit for embellishment, and if you look at like Mr. Fantastic's face here and here, I don't think those are totally Kirby faces. I think that Joe Sinnott was actually keeping certain things on model. Like, that thing is a Jack Kirby face down there. Definitely, no doubt about it. That thing is a Jack Kirby face. But I think Joe Sinnott must have been working on, this is why he got credit for embellishment, must have been working on these faces just because that they don't look so much like Jack. They look sort of more illustrative than Jack worked all the time. Jack loved these weird shapes and squiggles even here. And matter of fact, if we flip to the back, there's some pages where, like that right there, that's a Jack Kirby face. He's got the heavy brows with the marks. That looks like a Jack Kirby face there. And I don't think Sinnott, he got credit for inking in some of the later ones and not embellishing. So I think that's what they're meaning by embellishing, is that he was really working on some of the faces and such things. Boom, look at all that. I mean, whew, that's a wild splash page. And that right there, kind of that looks like more like a Kirby face than the other ones. Mouth open, eyes. It's got kind of the brows there that are those weird Jack Kirby shapes. They don't really, this is all Jack Kirby in here. All these leg muscles, which are Kirby shorthand. But just and all this stuff that Joe Sinnott did, all these motion lines that he did. I mean, that's not that. I mean, it's just a movement with your hand, but you got to be good at it. That's why a lot of people really love Sinnott's inking. I mean, look at all these lines in here, all these wonderful motion lines. Just look at how perfect they are and how many of them there are. Look at that. I mean, that really is incredible. And look at, oh man, just the hair in the back of his head. I'm sure that's all that inking. That's all technique right there. That's all Joe Sinnott. Because I'm sure Kirby just gestured that hair in, but of course Sinnott, knowing how to ink hair of every type, knows exactly what to do without Kirby having to draw it in. I mean, man, just all these liquid blacks in here and explosions going out. That's beautiful inking. And see that looks like a Jack Kirby head. Once again, you can tell by the eyebrows, the mouth, the eyes. As opposed to like that little head over there, I'm sure Jack just gestured that in, and Joe Sinnott drew a lot of that little head because that looks much more sort of realistic without the abstractions of the eyebrows. So, did you see the white out on the mouth? I guess they sometime fixed it. Look at these two figures right here are just beautiful. Just two guys shaking hands, and both powerful and captured. You can see the Kirby's notes down here. And if one of us dare to, it's about if an antimatter and a matter guy touch each other, they explode. But so even that's maybe more advanced than ours. So that's the once again, it's cut off at the top, so we can't read what the note Kirby had there. Was that he had all notes telling what went on in the story for Stan to write the dialogue in. And that looks like a cross between Sinnott and Kirby right there. They're both doing a little drawing in that face to me. But yeah, it's really, and another thing about this is the lettering. Let's take a moment. I think was it Joe Rosen who did this issue, or was this Artie Simic? I can't remember. It doesn't matter because both of them are exceptional. If you look at, you just don't get lettering like this anymore now that it's all on computer, and it's just done differently. And I think the lettering is as much visual as it is written, in that if you actually try to read these bolds out loud, it doesn't and any kind of, it doesn't like, only seconds left, Annihilus. This cylinder for our repeller units. What's your answer? Yes, anything. So it doesn't, when you read it out loud with the bolds kind of being louder than the other stuff, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Don't talk. Put them on fast. Every second counts. But visually, it looks really good. And kind of, I can remember, I never really read bolds in my head as louder than anything, but they add a visual element to the story, where they kind of emphasize words in your mind, but not really as if it was speech. So I always found bolds kind of interesting in these old comics. And just look at these balloon shapes. I mean, you just don't. Every balloon is drawn. And by that I mean it's just not, like nowadays, if you were doing computer lettering, you have your balloons pre-done for you, and you just kind of put the one in there that fits best. You've individualized it a little bit, but all these balloons are individual. They generally follow, certain patterns, but just every balloon is different than the one that came before it, and the overlaps, and I mean, just look at the way these balloons fit in this panel here. It's just, I mean, that balloon sticks out a little there, that balloon is more cut off, that balloon is more elliptical, that balloon's got an odd little shape to it. So it's just, we get a nice burst over there. So the balloons are just, they're as much part of the art as anything. And they were really, I mean, just look at the type work. The bolds, the normal, and all of a sudden you have to make it bigger and get bolds, and it's just, I mean, the type work, I mean, I'm not anti-computer lettering or anything, but the type work these hand letterers did could be amazing, especially, now we're on to Artie Simic. I think that was Joe Rosen who did the end, but just the, holy cow, look at the lettering is as well done as anything else in this book. And the lettering is as thought about as anything else in this book. It's clobberant. I mean, just... And I was also, I wonder who, on some of the lettering, let me see if I can show it to you. You can see there's blue line under the balloons. That meant that, I'm not sure who would indicate the lettering on this, because that meant that whoever, it was either Stan Lee, or maybe the letterer, because you can see there's numbers too. So the first thing you do when you get a penciled page and Stan Lee was scripting it, he'd have to indicate where balloons go. So he'd write the script and he'd go, balloon 1, you can't do it alone, Ben. Balloon 2, they recover too quickly. Balloon 3, but they're afraid of flame and can't stand intense heat. And then I don't know if it was, sometimes the editor did it, sometimes the letterer did it. They would take a blue pencil and they would draw in roughly where the balloons go before they lettered it, so they knew, so they could space everything out. And you can actually see like blue lines over there spacing everything out. Like I said, I don't know if Artie Simic or Stan Lee roughed in these blue balloons, but I think it'd be kind of interesting to know. Some corrections up here. Well, that's editorial corrections going on. You can see the a balloon patch right there. Some whiteout over here. It's amazing seeing these as if they were original. Lots of notes. In the Kingdom of the Inhumans, Toad Courtier says, "Good news, sir. The mission was successful." Jack Kirby notes. More beautiful Joe Sinnott lines. Oh, and here's something interesting. I love this Maximus the Mad armor. But could you imagine having to draw that all the time? Jack Kirby would come up with new outfits for him all the time, but I noticed if you look closely at like his headdress there's a lot of whiteout in there, and in there. Because I can imagine keeping that headdress straight, figuring out what the heck was going on was a big pain in the neck. And maybe Jack Kirby, he may have drawn it all there, but then just kind of gestured it in there, and Joe Sinnott kind of had to figure it out and fix it. Because there's white out here on this part of the headdress, or maybe they fixed it in the office. I don't know. But it's funny that that headdress has got no white out there. They got it right. But just imagine having to keep that straight as you drew it over and over. Then we get some nice... the Inhumans show up in a giant splash page. More Jack Kirby notes up top. It's just wonderful to flip through this and see all this beautiful stuff. The lettering, the writing, the drawing, that right there looks like a Joe Sinnott drawing to me. It's just amazing to flip through. Well, let's flip to the end. We'll just quickly go through these. Just everything. I love that panel right there. Just look at how beautiful that is. This is there in Latveria. There's little Nick Fury. See, that face looks a lot like Jack Kirby. Big broad nose, big eyebrows. That one does too. All three of them. But like I said, then we got some corrections on the chin down there. I bet someone thought the chin was too big. But just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And we'll flip back here to show you a few of the... These are just Jack's Fantastic Four cover gallery. Nice Doctor Doom cover, number 86. That's just... Wow. Look at all that beautiful figure work in there. A Mole Man cover. King size special. Look at it. They pasted in the Mole Man here over the artwork. Look at signed by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Joe Sinnott. Wow. Triple signed. Oh, hold on, let me move it up. I don't think you can see it. Triple signed down there. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Joe Sinnott. When calls Galactus is a splash. See the whiteout so white in there as the page is yellowed. Is embellished by Joe Sinnott, embellished by Joe Sinnott. Now this one is just inking by Joe Sinnott, inking by Joe Sinnott. So I guess Jack was doing a little more of the penciling in these later issues, 95, and a little less layouts. But wow, look at all those faces in there. Even a little baby. That looks like a lot like Joe Sinnott's work in there. Those faces. But there's a Jack Kirby eye if there ever was one. Once again, that's a Jack Kirby face. Look at all these strange shadows and shapes in his eyes and everything else. And look at that Reed Richards that's Jack Kirby, but just his eyes half in shadow and strange shapes on his forehead. Once again, there's Jack Kirby. Once again, heavy eyebrows. Just great stuff. Some random old Fantastic Four 70 and 73 pages. 95. Wow. Just everything about this book is fabulous. Let's go to the back. There we go. Rag dolls, maybe. You get some great Jack Kirby work. Get some great Joe Sinnott work. Get some great Artie Simic and Joe Rosen work. It's just, I mean, it's called the Jack Kirby Artist Edition, but it's everybody's in it. Oh, you know, this is 3 or 4 people's. Look at this page got damaged somehow. He lost a part of a balloon. Just, it's like, that's a Jack Kirby face. Those look like Jack Kirby faces. That looks like a Joe Sinnott face. So, interesting stuff. I just glad my friend lent this to me, and I've been having a lot of fun looking through it, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Y'all have a good week out there.